It's early. I didn't turn my microphone on. I really am glad you're here, and I'm going to be honest with you. I am very excited about this series. If you're looking for practical, how do I begin to live out my best God-given life, I promise you, that's what this whole journey is going to be like. It's what it's going to be all about. And we did pick a road because I think the metaphor sort of works, but it made me think, do you remember that old cartoon Cars? Remember that one? Remember that? You know, we should have actually had that, life is a highway. That should have been the song. Well, I was thinking about the movie. If you don't know the movie, it's about old Route 66 and about this town that used to be on Route 66. And then the new highway comes in, and this old road that was built for these towns, these towns start to die off. And I've been to Route 66. In fact, a few years ago, went down Route 66. We were doing a project down there. And while it's not exactly as the cartoon states, you do see sort of how these highways, this highway was built, and then the big interstate came through. And now you have this road that, for all practical purposes, in so many ways, doesn't much matter anymore. Now, of course, there's still people that live on this road, but you got to remember, back in the day, Route 66, and some of you may have been a part of this, people went on Route 66 with their kids. They went on vacation. People built their lives around this road, and then one day, right, another road came in, and this is now just a road to nowhere that matters all that much anymore. At least that is the way that the film portrays it, and I think it's somewhat true. So here's what I want to ask you this morning. Can this happen in our lives? Have you ever run into someone who's built a road in their life, and then they wake up one day and they're like, this isn't going anywhere that matters anymore? Because I can tell you, in my profession, I've sat across plenty of men who've said it almost that way. Where like you wake up because, I don't know, the cancer diagnosis or the divorce or you just had an epiphany, and you look at your life and you're like, I built a life that's not going anywhere anymore. And truth is, guys, look, this can happen to all of us. Like all of us, every single one of us. And it's not something, it's a funny thing when I think about how most of us sort of live our lives. It's not like we wake up one day and we decide we're gonna just build a really crummy life. Nobody does that. That isn't how it works, right? In fact, you go back in time, I was thinking about it because this week we dropped off our youngest. We are sort of empty nesters. Like officially sort of empty nesters. I want to explain that. Some of you know what that means. That's because we moved the last one out as the middle one moved back in, right? So Gray is with us for a few more weeks until he starts his job. He's got a job in downtown Denver. He finished his master's at KU. But as I was thinking about Harrison going off to CSU, I thought, well, here's a kid, 18. You remember what it felt like to be 18. Some of you still think you're 18, right? Isn't that funny how it's like, I still feel like 25 until I go and like run or do something physical. But I was thinking about that kid going off to school, and I thought about all of us. None of us go about life and go, you know what, I think I'm gonna try to build a life that doesn't matter very much, right? Nobody says that. I mean, this kid, he's got the world in front of him, and I look around, there's 35,000 kids on this campus. And all of them are thinking the same thing, and you were one of those kids once. You walked on a college campus, or you started that job, you went to trade school, whatever it was, where you looked at it your whole life, and it was like a road sitting in front of you. And you're like, man, I'm gonna live a great life. And then sometimes we wake up, and it isn't the way we planned it. It isn't exactly what we hoped for. And the reality is, none of us wake up one day and decide to chase the wrong things. The reality is, it just sort of happens over time. In fact, you know what really happens? Is that life happens, and we stop thinking about it all that much. Most of the time, like when we find ourselves on a road that just isn't going anywhere that matters that much anymore, it isn't because we planned it, it's precisely because we didn't. We just stopped thinking about it. Like you put your life on autopilot, and that's sort of like how life works. The older I get, the more I say the things that my dad used to say. Anybody else? But it's true. Like, why does every summer go faster than the one before? Why does every year seem to go faster than the one before? Because that's life. It just sort of happens. And this is why this verse in Proverbs matters so much. Listen to what the writer says. I love it. Ponder the path of your feet. Ponder. You know what he's saying? Guys, think about it. The writer's saying, look, we've got to think about it. And so this is what I promise you. I want you to grab this card real quick again. I know that Jason pulled it in front of you. Over the next 8 months, what we are going to do, I promise you, is think about it in 6 very specific ways. You can see it. I'm giving it away on the card the first half of the year. But there are 6 things that we are going to be laser focused on that I believe that if we get them right and we think about them and build a plan toward them, we will leave this series better men. So what are those 6 areas? Well, I'm going to tackle each one of them over the next few months, but I want to sort of unpack them. Here's what I've come to understand. The things that matter most, these things that matter most, they actually matter all the time. I heard a pastor say it this way, and I actually absolutely believe this. He had someone said, hey, could you describe the soul? What is the soul? Because oftentimes when we talk about the soul, we think it's like, I don't know, Casper the Friendly Ghost, gonna like float up on it. Like one day I'm gonna be on when we're all dead, we're gonna sit on a cloud with a harp and strum it, and that'll be in my soul. But the way that John Ortberg talked about it, he said, no, actually, the soul is this like sticky substance that sticks your heart and your mind and your spirit and your body all together. It like sticks it all together. Like that you're all of those pieces. And what you're gonna see over the next 8 weeks is us tackling these pieces, starting with physical and emotional health. Listen to me, guys. The condition of your body and your inner life, look, this matters. How do I know? Because I've had both of them break down, right? Anybody had your body break down? It affects everything else. You have the inner life break down, it affects everything else. And these 2 things affect each other. We're gonna talk about physical and emotional health in the next month when we get to October. We're gonna dive into spiritual life, right? Your actual walk with God, not your attendance record. Now, this can go both ways. Some of us can attend church and our spiritual life can be dead. Some of us can have a dead spiritual life because we don't attend anything. We're just gonna talk about what does it look like to cultivate a spiritual life. Then we're gonna look in November. We're gonna talk about what does it mean to be a good husband. Now, for those of you that aren't married, we are going to talk both in future state, and for those of you that may be on the other side of marriage, we're gonna talk about what it looks like, these relationships look like, so do not check out. Then we're gonna talk in December about what it means to be a good dad, grandfather, uncle, those meaningful relationships, specific, hands-on, the blessing or the wound that you're gonna hand your children or grandchildren or nieces and nephews. And then as we turn into next year, we'll talk about brotherhood. Many of us have more contacts in our phone than we know what to do with and nobody to call, right? We're gonna tackle that challenge, and then we're gonna turn the corner and we're gonna talk about vocation because the work that we do, it matters. 6 specific things, 6 specific roads. And let me say that I've come to understand these 6 really do matter. Now, there probably are other things that you could add to the list that you say, man, I think you're missing this. But as I've come to understand how life works for us guys, when we get the road, all these things started pointing in the right direction. We start to build a road to something that does matter. Now, this is what I want to say about these 6, and the reason why as I was thinking about this all summer long, I was thinking about these 6, and it's interesting. None of these 6, none of them send you a bill up front. Not really. Now, your boss will call you the moment that something goes wrong, right? Your boss is going to call you the moment something goes wrong. Your inbox will not let you forget. Your bank account will tell you exactly where you stand every single day, whether you ask it or not. But your marriage, it probably won't do that. Your kids won't do that. Your soul won't do that. They don't send notices. They just sort of go quiet. And sometimes quiet goes fine. And sometimes quiet happens for a real long time. And that drift that we talk about, when we don't have to think about these things, can turn into years. And really, the reality is for most of us, the road that yells the loudest, it always wins. Not because it matters the most, because it screams the loudest. And so we're going to be intentional. Because make no mistake, a bill will come in all of these areas. It's just going to come later. Like you're going to pay it, and you're going to pay it with interest. And so that's our goal, is over the next 8 weeks to get uber intentional in these areas. Now, I'm going to ask you to do 2 things. One is going to be future state, and in a few minutes, I'm going to hand you something that will begin the journey for all of us. Now, before I tell you what it is, because some of you are already going to start getting test anxiety, I'm going to start with the latter, the future state. Listen, I need you to invite another guy into this journey. I'm serious. I need you to invite another guy. There's somebody you know right now that if they sat in this room with a bunch of other guys and around a table like this, it would make all the difference in the world. I love that Kurt called this men's club, because it made me think of that movie Fight Club. And the first rule of men's club is you don't talk about men's club. Not in this men's club. I need you to talk about it, right? I need you to talk about it. I need you to go out. There are a bunch of guys. How do I know this? Guys, because a bunch of guys in this church come to me on a regular basis and say, I don't have any friends. I need to connect with some guys. And you know what I always tell them? Come to the breakfast. Come out to the breakfast. But I'm telling you, it's really hard. You guys know this. Walk in a space where you don't know any dudes. Listen, something happens to us. It's really easy for us to meet people when we're like 12 years old, and then something happens to all you guys, and you all get all shy, but you act really tough about it, right? You don't want to walk into new places. You don't want to meet new people. It's like, nope, I want to keep going to the same places I've always been, which is nowhere, right? So what I need you to do, invite a guy out. I want you to make it your mission. One guy, get him to come with you to talk about this. It makes a difference. Okay, so now what's the second thing? So in a few minutes, here's what's gonna happen. I'm gonna hand you an assessment. And it is an assessment across all 6 areas of your life. Now, I want you to prep for this, but I want to talk to you about it for just a minute before we hand these out. Let me tell you what this is not. This is not a pass or fail. It's really not a performance review. You know, for some of you, you take a deep breath. Nobody is grading you, and nobody's going to see your specific assessment except for you. This is you. It's you and God. What this is a chance for us to do what the writers of Proverbs says, and that is to ponder our lives for a moment. So I'm going to ask you on these six questions. Each of these areas have a few questions, and I want you to honestly answer for your sake, not where you wish you were or where I was 5 years ago. I want you to think about in this moment, right now, where am I? Right now. and then answer from there. This is us pondering together. It's a really simple assessment. It just looks like this. Each one of these 6 areas have 3 simple questions. And in a moment, I'm gonna walk you through how to do this assessment. But before we hand this out, let me tell you why I think this matters. In Matthew chapter 7, Jesus gives this parable, this saying. For those of you that are familiar with it, you've heard it before. It's found in verse 13. He says this, he says, enter by the narrow gate. The gate is wide and the way is easy that leads to destruction. And those who enter by it are many. For the gate is narrow and the way is hard that leads to life. And those who find it are few. Jesus isn't describing sort of 6 roads, but he is describing the choice that is underneath each of these 6 decisions, each of these 6 pieces. He's describing the choice, isn't he? Like there is an easy way and there is a hard way. This is the reality of life. That there is a road that leads to nowhere and a road that leads to somewhere. And Jesus makes the case that the road that leads to nowhere is quite wide because it's easy. It's simple. You drift on the wide road. I've often said to someone, listen, no choice is a choice, right? No choice is a choice. And Jesus says, listen, there are 2 ways in which we can live. One will take effort. It will take intention. It will, as the writers of Proverbs says, it will take us pondering. And the other road, we will just drift on. And so this is what we're gonna do. That's our commitment, right? We're going to think about it. So here's what I want you to do. There's a manila folder, little envelope at the middle of your table. Table leaders, will you grab that? And will you hand out this card to every guy at your table? And every fellas, you should have a pen. Don't start answering this. I want to give you one last setup on this card before we take some time. Hand them around, grab a pen, fellas. Now here's what's gonna happen. We're gonna give you a few moments. You can look at this card for a moment. You don't have to study it. I've already set you up. Listen, I want you to go in, this is between you and God. I want you to go into this assessment with an open heart, being honest with yourself. And here's the goal. We're each one of you are gonna leave today, not with all of the roads that you're gonna sort of work on, one. That over the next 8 months, you're gonna commit to work to. You're gonna do that by the scores that happen on this card. One road. That's the road that you walk this year, the narrow one, on purpose. And the scoring's really simple, guys. You're going to mark each of these. Here's your score on each of these. I'm not sure how I scored this now that I look at it. I'm looking at this going, how in the heck did I score this? Here's what I want you to do. You got physical and emotional health. You have each answer. You're gonna score yourself from 0 to 10, right? 3 questions. And that 0 is if you said, hey, I'm getting consistent sleep and physical activity that leaves me energy for my family, not just my job. If you're crushing that, you're gonna give it a 10. If you're not doing so well, you're gonna give it a 0 or somewhere in between. And then you're gonna honestly add up the scores so that you have a total score. And then your job is to look at each of these areas of your life and the one that sort of pings to you. That's the one that you're like, that's what I'm gonna work on this year. Now, let me say one last thing before I cut you loose on this. Some of you are sitting here and you're thinking about this. And you're already starting to think about a road that feels like it's ended. Like a marriage that's already over, or something that feels broken with your kids, a version of you that You've already lived through a story you've went through. Let me just say this. You cannot walk back to 1998 and do it differently. You can't. But last I checked, everybody in here is still alive. You're breathing. This is what I know, that there are men, some of the men that I respect most in this world, who buried a failure and let God build something honest out of what was left. And you can still do that. And that's the challenge, right? Because it's not that the failure didn't matter. It's just not the end of your story. It's just not the end of your story. So, we are going to ponder the path of your feet. And then at the end of this 5 minutes, I'll give you a little bit of direction. They'll turn on some music. But let's take just the next few minutes with your pen and this paper, and let's take this assessment together. All right, we're wrapping up. Well, those of you that are still working, keep doing that. I'm going to ask the rest of us, I want you to do two things for me real quick. There's a coin on your table. Will you grab it? Grab that coin, put it in your left hand, right hand, whichever hand, one of your hands. Just grab that coin real quick. So let me say something about the coin. Because we gave a coin in the last session, and I carried that coin around with me all last year. And I thought it's a perfect little piece because it's easily fits in your pocket. But here's why I think this coin matters. Here's how I want you to think about this coin for the next 8 months. I want you to use this coin as like a little thinking token. Like the Bible tells us, let's ponder the path of your feet. So this is what I want you to do with it. I don't want you to put it in a drawer. I want you to put that in your pocket every single day. And here's what I want you to do with it. In a moment, you're going to commit to one area in your life this next 8 months that you're going to be focused on in one of these 6 lanes, one of these 6 roads. So let's just use the first one. If you're like, you know what? This next 8 months, it's all about physical and mental health. I want you to attach that thought to the coin. I want you to put it into your pocket. And every time that you reach into your pocket and you feel the coin, I want you to be reminded of this commitment. I'm going to think about my physical, my inner life this next 8 months. Listen, I know it's not easy. Anytime that we make a commitment, this is like one of those deals where it's like, you know, every time we get to New Year's, we make a new year and we feel so good about it. You know, some of you still have a gym membership from January. You hadn't even been to it yet, right? I get it. It's like empty promises. But this is why we're going to do it at a table in a minute. We're going to talk a little bit about what we're committing to. Not to shame one another, but look, sometimes we need a push. We need some accountability. We need a token in our pocket. And I'm telling you, listen, it will mean you got to make a plan, and it does mean that you're going to have to get back into this place and hold yourself accountable and let someone else hold you accountable. But this token, hopefully, will be a reminder every single day that you've chosen to ponder the road that you're walking on, that you're going to ponder it. One thing this year, and think about it. Just imagine, if we get to next April, next May, and that one thing goes up exponentially. Can you imagine what it would do for your life? What would it look like if 8 months from now, that one thing that you scored the lowest on, that you commit to, if you got serious for the next 8 months, what would that look like? Because that's what we're going to hold on to. A vision about what could happen if we got serious in one of these areas over the next 8 months. And then imagine a room full of guys like this that get serious together. So that coin, it's just a piece of metal that we stamped a verse on that's way too small and most of you can't read. Most of you are like, does that say something down there? What does that thing say? You're like, well, honey, can you read this to me? But listen. Every time you grab it, you're going to think about what we just did together, what you're about to do together. And then the second thing, I'm just gonna say it again. You know what? I actually like Kurt. I like calling this men's club. And I actually think we might start to say, what's the first rule of men's club? You talk about men's club. So I might bring that up every single month. You talk about men's club. I want you to invite somebody else in on this journey. Somebody that you know. Somebody that maybe you don't even know them all that well, but you wanna know them. Maybe it's a neighbor, a coworker, someone you know that's struggling. Invite them into this journey with us. Let's see what happens in 8 months when we get serious on the road that we're traveling on together. So here's what I'm gonna invite you into. Not only to spend time, I'm so grateful that you would spend time on what you're feeling this next season looks like for you, but there's another card, and it's just a series of conversation points. Here's where we now talk about it. And the reason why we talk about it is when we bring somebody else into the fold with us, we're stronger because of it. So at your table, you all have cards just like this, a series of questions that I'm just gonna invite you over the next few minutes to share. Now here's how our sharing time works at Men's Club, you gotta go when you gotta go. But I'm gonna kick it back to you. It is right now 7:19. When you've got to go, you have to go, but we'll let the music play. We hope that you will engage in some serious conversation. I hope you'll put that coin in your pocket, that you'll take seriously what God's asking of you in this next 8 months, and I hope that you'll invite one more person to Men's Club. Deal? All right, spend some time talking amongst each other.